So I wanted to start by asking, so about your presentation, you talked a lot about social media and its more negative effects, which are all obviously very real and very true. We all agree with this. But it's, as an adolescent, banning social media as a whole or putting limits on it would create more problems such as social isolation and other such things, which could cause other mental health issues. And so what I'm trying to say is that the situation is not fully black and white. And would how could society go about fixing this issue in the future?
Thank you. That's a very, very important question. So I want to clarify that when social media was first introduced, it had a very altruistic motive, just like the early days of the internet, so that all the knowledge of the world would be accessible to everyone. You could connect across borders, and despite any diseases or disabilities, you could be with other people and find connections. And that's all beautiful. And that's how it started for myself as well when I joined Facebook, when some of you probably weren't even born yet. It was easy, it wasn't addictive. But about 10 years ago, the big companies realized that there's great potential for them for financial benefits. And so they started creating the algorithms that have made social media what it is today, which is very addictive. And basically, their only incentive is to get as many people to use their services as possible, because we want the platforms to remain free for users. And so what they get out of it is the money for the advertisements. And so if we were willing to pay for using social media, they might make it less addictive. However, I don't think many of us are willing to pay. And it would be another financial barrier for some young people. I think we need to put pressure on the big companies so that they realize the harm that they are doing and seriously try to limit it. But right now, it doesn't seem that this will be happening, because we know that, for instance, Meta has reduced their fact checking and so on, and they've just pushed more of the responsibility on the individual users. And so for now, I think what the best that we can do to protect young people is to set more strict age limits for use. This will be a wake-up call to the companies. And at the same time, we should encourage new companies to build new platforms. The social media that we now have only been around for a few years, and it's very likely that we can get new ones that are healthier.
Going back to the addictive platforms that teenagers use, um, I have a question about that because I feel like most teenagers know that those platforms are addicted, but most of them don't really know how to go about and how to resist the mechanisms.
You're absolutely right. Resisting the mechanisms is so hard because when they were developed, they used all the psychological knowledge that has been gained to build the algorithms. So they know exactly what will make people stay on longer. Most of the knowledge comes actually from casinos that have been around for a long time. So we know that if you sort of take a person into a place where you lose track of time, you lose track of what is going on outside, when the sun shines and when it doesn't, and so on. And when you add a little bit of twinkling lights, surprising elements, feelings of, for instance, in digital games, feelings of, I almost made it. So if I try again, I probably will make it. Those are things that are very hard for any person to resist, let alone young people with the developing brains, and with also sort of the inbuilt insecurity that goes along with being a young person, because you're building your identity and you're building a sense of being accepted by other people. And if you think of social media, there's a lot of those kinds of elements within. The number of followers, the number of comments, the types of comments and reactions you get from other users. And it's sort of kind of like emotional food that you're yearning for, that you feel that you belong, that you're accepted. And when you add in the short reels, the short video clips that started from TikTok, but now are available also in Instagram and Facebook and basically Snapchat, all the platforms use them now. That's again another way of keeping a person engaged. They come in so quickly that there's another emotional reaction and another one. And if you look at the mechanism in the brain, it releases dopamine, which is one of the transmitters between neural circuits. And it's very strongly associated with the sense of reward. So what you're getting in social media is social rewards. And unfortunately, in our studies, when young people have set time limits for themselves, for instance, we saw on the screenshots that they sent us that some had tried to limit the use of TikTok to 30 minutes per day. But then in the time use screenshot, we saw that they still spent more than 2 hours on it every single day. It just tells you that, yes, young people know that this is not good and they're trying to set the limit, but the platform is just too much for them to handle.
I have a question because we see a lot of things every day on social media, and most of them aren't always true. So how do you think social media influences teenagers' self-esteem and identity formation?
Social media has great effects on these things. We already know that, for instance, the basic life values of young females and males have started to separate from each other stronger than before. And if you consider that, for instance, in Finland, young people spend 6 hours per day on their phone, more than 4 hours a day on social media, that's such a huge number of hours per week. It's more than a work week for grown-ups, that it's bound to influence the way you think, that the way you see the world. And when the algorithms feed you more of the same type of content that you're seeking and that you've previously engaged in, it leads to these bubbles of people sharing the same values here and another people sharing their values here. And it's probably one reason behind the rise of extreme right politics, also now seen across Europe. Then if you think of more personal things, we also know that when young people are building their identity, they have a lot of questions. Every person thinks of, am I more of an athlete or a musician or an academic? And what are my strengths? What will be my place in the world? And one of the big questions that has grown a lot because of social media is the big questions about gender and sexual identity. Young people have thought about these questions before as well, but not as often as they do now.